My name is Griffin. I'm 28 years old and I never thought I'd come home from the most important business trip of my life to find all my belongings crammed into our moldy basement. The note on the kitchen counter said it all. If you want to stay live in the basement. My sister Cassandra had always been the golden child, but giving her my bedroom while I was securing a multi-million-dollar deal overseas that crossed a line. Lucky for me, I had a secret they didn't know about. A beautiful coastal apartment that was about to become my permanent home. If you're watching this from somewhere your family has ever betrayed you, hit that like button and subscribe to follow my journey from basement exile to finding true independence. Growing up in the Matthews household meant one thing was always certain: Cassandra came first. From the day my parents, Robert and Diana Matthews, brought my sister home from the hospital when I was 5 years old, the dynamic shifted. It wasn't obvious at first. Subtle things like Cassandra getting the last piece of cake, her artwork prominently displayed on the refrigerator, while my academic awards gathered dust in a drawer, or the way my parents would immediately stop whatever they were doing when she called for them. "Griffin, you're the big brother. You need to understand that your sister needs more attention," my mother would say whenever I pointed out the disparity. My father, a stern accountant with little patience for emotional conversations, would simply grunt and return to his newspaper. Despite the clear favoritism, I worked hard. School became my refuge, then college, then the business world. While Cassandra pursued an art degree with my parents footing the entire bill, I worked 3 jobs to put myself through a computer science program at State University. My parents contributed exactly $0 toward my education, claiming they trusted I could handle it myself. "You've always been so independent, Griffin," my mother would say, as if my self-reliance was a character flaw rather than a necessity born from their neglect. The irony wasn't lost on me when at 24 I launched my own cybersecurity company, Secure Tech Solutions. The first few years were grueling. 16-hour days, ramen noodle dinners, and a tiny apartment shared with 2 other tech entrepreneurs. But we built something special. By year 3, we had major clients across 3 states. By year 4, we expanded nationally. This year, we went international. All the while, I maintained a relationship with my family. Sunday dinners, holiday gatherings, birthday celebrations. I showed up for all of it, gifts in hand, smiling through the constant comments about how Cassandra's latest art installation was so moving or truly groundbreaking, even though she had yet to sell a single piece without my parents' connections paving the way. When my company started generating serious profit, I made a decision that surprised even me. I moved back home. The 5-bedroom house where I grew up had plenty of space, and my parents were getting older. My father 62, my mother 58. They never directly asked for financial help, but I knew their retirement accounts had taken a hit during the economic downturn, and my father's accounting practice wasn't bringing in what it once did. Just until I find the perfect place, I told them, though we all knew the arrangement benefited them more than me. I paid 3/4 of the mortgage-covered utilities and bought groceries. My childhood bedroom became both my sleeping quarters and makeshift office when I wasn't at company headquarters downtown. Cassandra, now 23, lived in a loft apartment downtown that our parents helped her secure. Despite being the favorite, she wasn't a bad person, just oblivious to the preferential treatment. We actually got along well whenever we were together without our parents around. She'd stop by the house weekly for dinner, and always took time to ask about my business, even if she didn't understand the technical aspects. "You should let me design your company logo," she'd offer, and I'd gently remind her that we had a professional marketing team. She'd pout momentarily before moving on to her next artistic inspiration. The international deal that would change everything began as a simple email from a Japanese technology firm interested in licensing our security protocol. Over 6 months, it evolved into a potential acquisition worth 8 figures. The negotiations required my physical presence in Tokyo for 2 weeks, my first trip to Asia, and the longest I'd been away from home since moving back in. 2 weeks in Japan. "How exciting," my mother said when I told them about the trip, though her tone suggested she was merely being polite. My father asked if the deal was actually going to happen, or if it was just another one of those tech pipe dreams. Cassandra was the only one who seemed genuinely happy for me. "Bring me back something cool," she requested, giving me a hug before I left for the airport. I hoped that finalizing this deal would finally earn my parents' respect, that proving my company's worth on an international scale would make them see my value. My bedroom, modest but comfortable with its queen-sized bed desk, and the bookshelf full of computer science texts and sci-fi novels, represented more than just a place to sleep. It was the one space in the house that felt truly mine, unchanged from my teenage years, aside from the upgraded desk and computer setup. Little did I know that room would become the battleground for a family reckoning years in the making. Tokyo was everything I had imagined, and more. The blend of ancient tradition and cutting-edge technology mirrored my own appreciation for building new innovations on solid foundations. My hotel, a sleek skyscraper in the Shibuya district, offered panoramic views of the city that lit up like a circuit board at night. The negotiations with Tanaka Technologies began immediately. Mr. Tanaka, the 60-year-old founder, reminded me of my father in his meticulous attention to detail, but differed in one crucial way. He recognized and respected ambition. His son Hiro, who served as COO, became my primary contact throughout the discussions. "Your security protocol is exceptional," Griffin-san Hiro said during our first meeting. "The adaptive response to potential breaches is unlike anything we've seen on the market." Each day brought intense 12-hour negotiation sessions. The Japanese team tested every aspect of our technology, questioned every line of code, and scrutinized our company financials. I found myself grateful for the grueling years of building my business. They had prepared me for this level of detailed examination. Between meetings, I called home daily. My parents rarely answered. When they did, the conversations were brief. "Everything's fine here," my mother would say. "How's China?" "Japan, Mom." "I'm in Japan," I would correct only to hear her distracted. Right, before she found a reason to end the call. By day 10, we had a breakthrough. Tanaka Technologies agreed to acquire 20% of SecureTech for $12 million, with the option to increase their stake in the future. Additionally, they would license our technology for their consumer electronics division, providing a steady revenue stream beyond the initial investment. "We have a deal," Mr. Tanaka announced, bowing formally before extending his hand for a Western-style handshake. The moment his hand clasped mine, I felt a surge of validation that 2 decades of family indifference couldn't diminish. That evening, I celebrated with Hiro at an upscale izakaya, drinking premium sake and discussing future collaborations. "Your family must be very proud," he commented. "They will be," I replied, believing it with all my heart. The next 3 days involved finalizing paperwork and setting implementation timelines. During breaks, I explored Tokyo's shopping districts, selecting gifts for my family. For my father, a rare bottle of Japanese whiskey. For my mother, a handcrafted silk scarf. For Cassandra, a set of traditional calligraphy brushes and inks that cost more than I'd ever spent on a gift before. My last night in Tokyo, I tried calling home again. No answer. I texted Cassandra, heading back tomorrow. "Deal successful. See you soon." Her reply came hours later. "Awesome. There have been some changes at home. Talk when you get back." I assumed she meant changes related to her art, or perhaps our parents' work situations. Nothing prepared me for what changes actually meant. The 14-hour flight gave me ample time to mentally rehearse sharing my success. I imagined my father's stoic nod that would for once contain genuine approval. I pictured my mother calling her friends to brag about her son's international business deal. I even fantasized about Cassandra proudly telling her artsy friends about her brother's company. When the plane landed in my hometown, exhaustion hit me hard, but excitement pushed it aside. I collected my luggage, including the carefully wrapped gifts, and booked an Uber from the airport. Coming home from a trip, my driver asked, noting my luggage. "Yes, a business trip to Japan that changed everything," I replied, unable to contain my smile. "Must have been some trip," he observed, glancing at me in the rearview mirror. "You look like a man who just won the lottery." In many ways, I had. The deal would transform my company and open doors I'd only dreamed of. As we pulled into the familiar suburban neighborhood where I'd grown up, I felt a sense of completion, the local boy returning triumphant, ready to share his success with those who mattered most. I tipped the driver, generously gathered my bags, and walked up the familiar path to our front door, fully unprepared for what waited inside. The house was unnervingly quiet when I entered. Usually the television would be on in the living room with my father watching financial news, or my mother would be in the kitchen preparing dinner. Instead, I was greeted by silence and the faint smell of fresh paint. I called out, "Mom, Dad, I'm home." No response. I dragged my suitcases to the staircase, intending to bring them up to my room before finding my family. That's when I noticed something odd about my bedroom door at the top of the stairs. A decorative wooden plaque with Cassandra's name hung where my plain door had always been. A cold knot formed in my stomach as I climbed the stairs. Reaching the door, I saw other changes. Small fairy lights framed the doorway, and artistic photographs were taped to the wood. With a shaking hand, I turned the knob and pushed the door open. My room was gone, completely gone. The walls, previously a neutral blue, were now painted a soft pink. My queen bed had been replaced by a daybed covered in throw pillows. My desk, where I'd built my company's first prototype, was nowhere to be seen, replaced by an easel and art supplies. The bookshelf that held my computer science textbooks and sci-fi collection now displayed art books and small ceramic sculptures. Not a single trace of me remained in the space. I stood frozen, unable to process what I was seeing. The sound of the front door opening downstairs barely registered until my mother called out, "Griffin, is that you? We weren't expecting you until tonight." I descended the stairs in a daze, finding my mother unpacking groceries in the kitchen, as if nothing was wrong. She glanced up with a casual smile. "How was your trip? Did you eat lunch yet? I bought some chicken I can cook up." "Mom," I said, my voice unnaturally calm, "why is Cassandra's stuff in my room?" She continued arranging groceries in the refrigerator. "Oh, we decided Cassandra needed more space for her art. Your sister has that gallery showcase coming up, you know." "Where are my things?" I asked, the calm in my voice belying the storm brewing inside. She gestured vaguely toward the basement door. "We moved everything downstairs. There's a note on the counter." Indeed, there was. A folded piece of paper I'd overlooked in my initial shock. I opened it to find my father's handwriting. "Griffin, we've moved your things to the basement. If you want to stay, that's where you'll be living now. Your sister needs a proper studio space for her art career. Dad." The note trembled in my hand. "You did this while I was away, without asking or even warning me." My mother finally stopped with the groceries and turned to face me. "Griffin, you're hardly ever home anyway with your computer business. You're always at your office downtown. Cassandra actually needs the space." The front door opened again, and my father walked in, briefcase in hand. He paused upon seeing me, then continued to the kitchen, as if nothing was amiss. "You're back," he stated flatly. "How was the trip?" "Dad, what is this?" I held up the note. "You moved all my stuff to the basement without even calling me." He loosened his tie and sat at the kitchen table. "Your sister has her big gallery opening next month. She needs proper space to prepare her installations. The basement is perfectly adequate for sleeping and whatever computer work you do at home. I pay 3/4 of the mortgage on this house." I reminded him, struggling to maintain composure. "And we're grateful for your contribution," he replied dismissively. "But family needs come first, and Cassandra needs that room more than you do right now." Before I could respond, the front door opened a third time, and Cassandra bounced in her arms full of art supplies. She brightened upon seeing me. "Griffin, you're back." She dropped her supplies on the couch and hugged me. "How was Japan? Did the deal go through?" I returned her hug stiffly. "The deal went through. We got everything we wanted and more." "That's amazing," she exclaimed, then immediately pivoted. "Did you see my new studio Mom and Dad surprised me? I've been wanting a bigger space forever, and they just made it happen while you were gone. Isn't it incredible?" Looking at her excited face, I realized she had no idea what had really happened. In her mind, our parents had simply given her a gift, not taken something from me. "When did this happen?" I asked, directing the question to all of them. 3 days ago, my mother answered. "It was quite the project. Your father and I packed everything up, and we had some nice young men from the moving company take the heavy furniture downstairs." "The moving company," I repeated. "You hired strangers to handle my personal belongings." "Well, we couldn't do it all ourselves," my mother said defensively. Unable to stand in the kitchen any longer, I headed for the basement door. The wooden steps creaked as I descended into the semi-finished space. The basement had always been used for storage and laundry with concrete floors and exposed ceiling beams. In one corner I found my life haphazardly piled. My bed frame was unassembled, leaning against the wall. The mattress lay directly on the concrete floor. My desk had a crack running across its surface. Boxes labeled Griffin stuff in my mother's handwriting were stacked precariously, some already showing water damage from the basement's persistent dampness. I opened one box to find my childhood photo albums, soaked the images already blurring from moisture. Another contained my collection of first-edition sci-fi novels, their pages warped. A third held my awards and certifications, the frames cracked and glass shattered. Worst of all, I found my laptop and external hard drives, simply tossed into a plastic bin, not even wrapped for protection. I pulled out the computer with shaking hands, praying it hadn't been damaged. While it powered on, I couldn't be sure if the hard drives containing years of personal projects had survived their careless handling. The basement had one small window well that let in minimal natural light. A single bare bulb hung from the ceiling. The space smelled of mildew and laundry detergent. This was where my parents expected me to live, despite my financial contributions to the household. As I surveyed the ruins of my personal space, the full weight of my family's betrayal crashed down on me. This wasn't just about a room. It was about respect, consideration, and fundamental recognition of my existence in their lives. I sank down onto my mattress on the floor, surrounded by the carelessly handled pieces of my life, and made a decision that would change everything. 6 months before my trip to Japan, I had made what I considered a prudent investment. The coastal property market 30 miles from our suburban hometown had been heating up, and my financial advisor suggested real estate as a smart diversification strategy for my growing portfolio. The apartment I purchased was meant to be both an investment and occasional weekend retreat. 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Pacific, and a spacious balcony perfect for morning coffee or evening cocktails. Modern, minimalist, and most importantly, mine alone. I hadn't told my family about the purchase. Initially, I worried they'd see it as frivolous spending or worse, ask to use it themselves. Later, I realized I simply wanted something that was exclusively mine, a space untouched by family dynamics and expectations. I'd furnished it sparsely but comfortably, occasionally spending weekends there when I needed to clear my head or work without interruption. Now standing in the basement, surrounded by the wreckage of my belongings, that apartment transformed from investment property to lifeline. I pulled out my phone and called my assistant Rachel. "Welcome back," she greeted cheerfully. "How was the flight?" "Exhausting," I replied, keeping my voice low. "Listen, I need a favor. Can you call the cleaning service we use for the office and have them go to my coastal apartment today? I'll be moving in permanently starting tonight." A brief pause. "Permanently? Is everything okay, Griffin?" "It will be. Also, can you reschedule tomorrow's meetings? I'll need the day to get settled." After ending the call, I methodically sorted through the basement chaos. Important documents, irreplaceable mementos, essential clothing. These went into suitcases. Electronics and fragile items were carefully wrapped in the few clean towels I could find. Everything else would have to wait. I made 4 trips up and down the basement stairs, carrying items to my car without speaking to my family. My mother watched from the kitchen doorway, brow furrowed in confusion. My father remained at the kitchen table, ostensibly reading the newspaper, but clearly monitoring my movements. Cassandra had disappeared upstairs to her new studio, my former bedroom. As I loaded the final suitcase into my trunk, my mother finally approached. "Griffin, what are you doing? Where are you going with all that stuff?" "I'm leaving," I stated simply, closing the trunk with a definitive thud. "Leaving? Don't be ridiculous. We made space for you in the basement. You expect me to live in a moldy basement when I pay most of the bills for this house?" My father appeared behind her. "You're overreacting. The basement is perfectly adequate. For storage, maybe. Not for a person who contributes financially to this household." "So this is about money," my father scoffed. "After everything we've done for you." The irony of his statement might have made me laugh if I wasn't so angry. "What exactly have you done for me lately, Dad? Or ever?" Cassandra emerged from the house, eyes wide, as she took in the loaded car and my travel bag. "Griffin, are you going somewhere?" "I'm moving out. I told her directly. Because of the room she asked, realization dawning. I didn't know it was a problem. You can have it back. I don't need it that badly. For the first time I saw genuine concern in her expression. The first family member to show any. It's not just about the room, Cass, I explained, softening my tone for her benefit. It's about respect, consideration, and being treated like I matter in this family. Of course you matter, my mother interjected. You're being so dramatic about this. Go cool off somewhere if you need to, but this is still your home. My father crossed his arms. He'll be back when he calms down. Where else would he go? Their confidence that I had no alternatives, no life beyond what they knew of, only strengthened my resolve. I'll send someone for the rest of my things, I said, opening my car door. And I'll transfer next month's mortgage payment as promised, but that's the last one. You should start figuring out your finances. My mother's expression shifted from dismissive to concerned. What do you mean the last one, Griffin? Be reasonable. I've been reasonable for years. I've contributed financially while being treated as an afterthought in my own family. That ends today. As I got into my car, Cassandra rushed forward. Wait, at least tell me where you're going. How can I reach you? I'll text you, I promised her alone. My father called out as I started the engine. This is childish, Griffin. Running away won't solve anything. You'll be back. I pulled away from the curb without responding, watching in my rearview mirror as my mother's hand flew to her mouth in belated concern, and my father turned back toward the house, already dismissing my departure. Only Cassandra remained on the sidewalk watching until my car turned the corner. The drive to my coastal apartment took 45 minutes each mile, putting welcome distance between me and the family home. As the suburban landscape gave way to coastal views, my breathing steadied, and the knot in my chest began to loosen. I parked in my designated spot beneath the modern building, nodding to the doorman as I entered with my first load of belongings. The elevator carried me to the 12th floor, and when I unlocked the door to apartment 1202, the setting sun was casting golden light across the hardwood floors and minimalist furnishings. The cleaning service had come and gone, leaving the space immaculate. Fresh linens on the bed, spotless kitchen counters, even a vase of simple white flowers on the dining table. Rachel had thought of everything. I moved my belongings in arranging clothes in the empty closet and setting up my laptop on the desk overlooking the ocean. As darkness fell, I stood on the balcony, listening to waves crash against the shore below and watching lights twinkle along the coastline. For the first time in years, perhaps ever, I was in a space that was completely mine, untouched by family dynamics, uncomplicated by history. The realization brought both liberation and profound sadness. It shouldn't have taken this level of betrayal to force me into claiming my independence. My phone buzzed with texts and missed calls from my mother, increasingly urgent but offering no apology. One message from Cassandra simply read, "I'm so sorry. I didn't know." I responded only to her, "I'm safe. I'm okay. I need some time." Then I silenced my phone, poured myself a glass of whiskey from the bottle I'd brought back from Japan, the one intended as a gift from my father, and toasted my new beginning alone but finally free from the basement of my fros. Family's expectations. The first week in my coastal apartment passed in a blur of work calls, furniture deliveries, and adjustment to my new reality. I threw myself into implementing the Japanese deal, scheduling video conferences with Hiro Tanaka at hours that accommodated the time difference. Work became both distraction and affirmation, proof that I had built something valuable despite my family's indifference. My apartment gradually transformed from weekend getaway to proper home. I ordered a more comfortable office chair, hung artwork on previously bare walls, and stocked the kitchen with actual cooking supplies rather than just the bare essentials. Each addition felt like a declaration: I'm staying. This is mine. I belong here. The building's amenities, a well-equipped gym, rooftop pool, and community lounge, offered opportunities to establish a routine. Morning workouts became meditative time to process my thoughts. Evening walks along the beachfront path introduced me to neighbors Monica, a surgeon who lived down the hall, Derek and James, a couple who owned the local bookstore, and Elena, a retired professor who walked her corgi at the same time each evening. New to the building, Elena asked, during our third consecutive evening encounter. Sort of, I explained. "I've owned the apartment for 6 months, but just moved in permanently." "Well, welcome home then," she said with a warm smile. "We do a monthly residence dinner on the rooftop. You should join us next week." These small interactions anchored me to my new community. Simple, straightforward relationships uncomplicated by decades of history. The silence from my parents stretched through that first week. My phone remained conspicuously free of calls or texts from either of them confirming what I had long suspected: their interest in me extended only as far as my utility to the household. On day 8, my mother finally called. I let it ring 4 times before answering. "Griffin." Her voice sounded smaller than usual. "Are you okay? We've been worried." "I'm fine," I replied, keeping my tone neutral. "Is there something you needed? Your Aunt Martha called asking about you. The family picnic is next month and she wanted to know if you'd be bringing anyone." A pause. I didn't know what to tell her about where you're living now. Of course, her concern wasn't for my well-being but for appearances. What to tell extended family about my abrupt departure? "You can tell her I moved out, and I'm doing well," I suggested. "Or you can tell her the truth, that you gave my room to Cassandra and expected me to live in the basement, so I left." "Griffin, you're making this sound so much worse than it was. We just thought that I wouldn't mind, that I didn't deserve the basic courtesy of a conversation before you dismantled my personal space." "What exactly did you think, Mom?" The line went quiet for a moment. "Your father and I thought you were planning to move out soon anyway. You're a successful businessman now. Why would you want to keep living at home?" "I was contributing to the household, paying most of the bills. The least you could have done was ask me before making decisions about my living space." "Well," she said, her voice taking on a defensive edge, "what's done is done. When will you be coming by to pick up the rest of your things? The basement needs to be cleared out for your father's home gym equipment." The casual cruelty of her response left me momentarily speechless. Not only had they evicted me from my room, but now they were repurposing the basement accommodation they'd offered, making it clear I had no place in their home at all. "I'll send movers next week," I finally replied. "Email me a day that works for you." After ending the call, I stood on my balcony watching waves crash against the shore, letting the rhythmic sound calm my racing heart. The conversation confirmed I'd made the right decision in leaving. Later that evening, Cassandra texted, "Can I come see where you're living? I feel terrible about everything." Unlike my parents, Cassandra had sent multiple messages over the week. Apologies, updates about her art, questions about my new place. Her genuine concern contrasted sharply with our parents' indifference. I replied, "Tomorrow after 6, I'll text you the address." Her response came immediately. "Thank you. I'll bring dinner." True to her word, Cassandra arrived the next evening with bags of takeout from our favorite Thai restaurant. She stopped in the doorway, taking in the ocean view with wide eyes. "Griffin, this place is amazing. How long have you had it?" "About 6 months," I admitted, leading her to the kitchen island, where we unpacked the food. "6 months. And you never told any of us." She looked hurt. "I needed something that was just mine," I explained. "Something no one could take away or dismiss." Understanding dawned on her face. "Like your bedroom." "Like my bedroom," I confirmed. We ate on the balcony, watching the sunset paint the sky in vibrant oranges and pinks. Cassandra filled me in on her upcoming gallery, showing her excitement tempered by evident guilt. "I told Mom and Dad I'm moving my art stuff back to my apartment," she said between bites of pad thai. "I said I couldn't work in that room knowing how you got pushed out." "You don't have to do that, Cass." "Yes, I do. I never would have accepted if I'd known what they did. They made it sound like you had agreed to the change." This new information stung but didn't surprise me. "How are they doing with the mortgage payment situation?" Cassandra's expression turned grim. "Not well. Dad's been making calls to his investment broker. I overheard Mom talking about possibly selling the house if they can't figure something out." For a brief moment, satisfaction flared at their predicament, a consequence of their actions finally coming home to roost. But it faded quickly, replaced by a dull ache for what our family relationship should have been. "They miss you," Cassandra added, though her tone lacked conviction. "In their way being they miss my financial contributions." She didn't deny it. They want you to come to Sunday dinner this weekend. Mom's making your favorite lasagna as a peace offering. I shook my head. I'm not ready for that. Tell them I have plans. Cassandra nodded understanding in her eyes. As she prepared to leave, she hugged me tightly. This place suits you, she said. You seem more yourself here already. After she left, I reflected on her observation. She was right. Away from the constant, subtle undermining of my parents' home, I felt more authentic, more confident. The success I'd built professionally was finally extending into my personal life as well. The following weeks established a new pattern. Cassandra visited regularly, our relationship strengthening without our parents' influence. I threw myself into work, and the Japanese partnership flourished. My coastal community welcomed me through rooftop gatherings and morning coffee with neighbors. My parents' attempts at contact grew increasingly urgent as financial reality set in. Text messages about family events evolved into questions about when this little break might end. My father even called one evening, his voice gruff with reluctant concern. "Your mother's worried about you," he said, unable to admit his own worry. "I'm doing fine, Dad. When are you planning to come home? This has gone on long enough." "I am home," I told him. "This is my home now." The silence that followed spoke volumes. He hadn't expected this outcome, that his dismissive actions would have permanent consequences, that his son had options beyond what he'd imagined. "We're having trouble with the mortgage," he finally admitted. "Without your contribution, I told you I'd pay the final month. That was 3 weeks ago. You've had time to make arrangements." "Griffin, be reasonable. Family helps family." "Yes," I agreed. "Family does help family. Family also respects family. You might want to think about that." I ended the call recognizing the conversation for what it was. Not an attempt at reconciliation, but at financial rescue. They didn't want me back. They wanted my checkbook. As my second month in the coastal apartment began, I felt increasingly settled. The wound of betrayal remained, but its edges were beginning to heal, scabbed over with the satisfaction of self-determination and the genuine connections I was building in my new community. Then one Saturday morning, my doorbell rang unexpectedly. I opened it to find not just Cassandra, but my parents standing in the hallway, their first time seeing the life I'd built without them. My parents stood awkwardly in my doorway, taking in the apartment with poorly concealed surprise. My mother clutched her purse with white knuckles, while my father's eyes darted from the ocean view to the modern furnishings, mentally calculating the cost. "May we come in?" my mother asked, her voice unnaturally bright. Cassandra thought it was time we all talked. I looked at my sister, who mouthed sorry behind our parents' backs. Her expression pleaded for understanding. "Come in," I said, stepping aside without warmth. They entered cautiously, like tourists in a foreign country. My mother immediately moved to the floor-to-ceiling windows, gasping at the ocean panorama. My father remained near the door, hands in his pockets, expression guarded. "Griffin, this is beautiful," my mother said. "You never told us you bought a place like this." "There's a lot I don't tell you," I replied evenly. An uncomfortable silence fell. Cassandra moved to the kitchen, making herself busy with the coffee maker, a peacemaking gesture. "Well," my father finally said, "this explains where all your money has been going." The comment, so characteristic in its dismissiveness, sparked something in me. 2 months of distance had weakened the habitually peacekeeping part of myself that would normally have let such remarks slide. "My money," I repeated. "Interesting choice of words, Dad. You never cared where my money went when it was paying your mortgage." My mother turned from the window. "Griffin, that's not fair. We're grateful for your contributions to the household. Grateful enough to move my belongings to the basement, without asking grateful enough to give away my room while I was overseas, closing a multi-million-dollar business deal. We've come to apologize about that," my mother said, though her tone lacked genuine contrition. "We should have discussed it with you first." "An apology, 2 months late," I noted. "And only after you realized I wasn't coming back to resume mortgage payments." My father's face reddened. "Is that what you think this is about, money? Isn't it? You haven't asked about my well-being, my work, or my life here. Your first question was about where my money goes." "That's not true," my mother protested weakly. "We've been worried sick. So worried that it took you 2 months to come see me. So worried that your first call was about what to tell Aunt Martha, not whether I was okay. Cassandra returned with coffee mugs, placing them on the dining table like a peace offering. Maybe we should all sit down. We moved to the table reluctantly. My parents perched on the edge of their chairs as if prepared for a quick escape. The thing is, Griffin, my mother began wrapping her hands around her mug. We didn't think you'd react this way. You've always been so independent, so capable of handling things on your own. Independent by necessity, I corrected, not by choice. My father frowned. What's that supposed to mean? It means I learned early that I couldn't count on you the way Cassandra could. It means I became self-sufficient because I had to, not because I wanted to be excluded from this family. That's ridiculous, my father scoffed. We've always treated you and your sister equally. Cassandra, who had been quiet until now, surprisingly spoke up. No, Dad, you haven't. 2p. You and Mom have always favored me. I've known it for years. My parents stared at her in shock. This wasn't the script they'd expected. Their children presenting a united front. Cassandra, honey, that's not true, my mother said. We love you both the same. Maybe you love us the same. Cassandra conceded, but you don't treat us the same. You paid for my entire education while Griffin worked 3 jobs to put himself through college. You celebrate my smallest artistic achievements while barely acknowledging his major business successes. You gave away his room without a second thought. My father's expression hardened. This isn't what we came here to discuss. We came to talk about the house. And there it was. The real purpose of their visit laid bare. What about the house? I asked, already knowing the answer. We're having trouble meeting the mortgage payments without your contribution, he admitted grudgingly. The bank has sent notices. So sell it, I suggested. Downsize to something you can afford. Sell our family home. My mother looked horrified. Griffin, be reasonable. We're not asking you to move back. Just to continue helping with the payments until your father's investments recover. The audacity was breathtaking. They wanted my financial support without having to accommodate my physical presence. Let me understand this, I said slowly. You want me to pay for a house I don't live in, where I'm not welcome, except perhaps in the basement, and where my belongings were treated with complete disregard. When you put it that way, it sounds terrible, my mother said. It is terrible, I confirmed. That's exactly what happened. My father's face flushed with anger. We gave you a home for 28 years, and I've been paying for that home for the past 3 years, I countered. 3/4 of the mortgage, all utilities, most groceries. I've more than repaid any debt I might have owed. Is this how you treat family? He demanded. Abandoning us when things get difficult? The hypocrisy was staggering. I didn't abandon anyone, Dad. I removed myself from a situation where I was being taken advantage of and disrespected. There's a difference. We're your parents, my mother said tearfully. We need your help. And I needed parents who saw me as more than a checkbook, I replied. We don't always get what we need. My father stood abruptly, chair scraping against the floor. This is useless. He's made up his mind. He turned to my mother. I told you this was a waste of time. He doesn't care what happens to us. As he moved toward the door, Cassandra called after him. Dad, that's not fair. Griffin has every right to be upset after what you did. He ignored her, yanking open the front door. My mother hesitated, torn between following him and continuing the conversation. Griffin, she pleaded, try to understand. We're family. Family respects each other, I said quietly. Family communicates. Family doesn't take each other for granted. With a last, tearful look, she followed my father out, leaving Cassandra and me at the dining table. I'm so sorry, Cassandra said after the door closed. They promised they would apologize properly. I never thought they'd ask for money. I'm not surprised, I told her. This was never about getting me back. It was about getting my financial support back. She nodded sadly. I know. I think I've always known how they are with you, but I didn't want to see it. She reached across the table to squeeze my hand. I'm staying. If that's okay, I'd like to hear about your Japan deal. You never got to tell anyone about it. For the first time in weeks, I felt the warmth of genuine family connection. We spent the afternoon on the balcony, Cassandra listening attentively as I recounted the negotiations in Tokyo, asking insightful questions about the business implications, celebrating my success in a way our parents never had. When she left that evening, she hugged me tightly. "I'm proud of you," she said, "not just for the business stuff, but for standing up for yourself. It's about time." As I closed the door behind her, I realized the confrontation, while painful, had been necessary. The truth was finally in the open. My parents valued what I could provide more than who I was. It hurt, but facing that reality freed me from the endless cycle of seeking their approval. My phone buzzed with a text from Cassandra. "They're upset now, but they'll come around. And if they don't, their loss. I'm still your sister, no matter what." For the first time since discovering my belongings in the basement, I felt a sense of peace. I'd lost the fantasy of having supportive parents, but I'd gained something perhaps more valuable: self-respect and an honest relationship with my sister. Standing at my window watching nightfall over the ocean, I realized I no longer needed my parents' validation to know my worth. I had built a successful company, secured an international partnership, created a beautiful home, and maintained my integrity through it all. By their own actions, my parents had lost the privilege of being part of that success story. 2 months of no contact stretched ahead, a necessary healing period for wounds decades in the making. The coastal autumn brought cooler temperatures and spectacular sunsets. My life settled into a rhythm entirely my own. Early morning runs along the beach, productive days at my downtown office, or working from my apartment in evenings, spent either with new friends from the building or in peaceful solitude. Cassandra visited weekly, our relationship flourishing without our parents' complicated dynamics. She brought updates about her art career. Her gallery showing had been successful, resulting in several sales and a commission for a local restaurant. She never pressed me about reconnecting with our parents, respecting my need for distance. My company continued to thrive. The partnership with Tanaka Technologies exceeded expectations, opening doors to Asian markets we'd previously considered inaccessible. We hired 15 new employees and leased additional office space to accommodate our growth. Success that had once seemed like a means to earn parental approval now stood as its own reward. Achievements valued for their intrinsic worth rather than their potential to impress others. In my personal life, I found myself opening up more readily. I joined a local business leaders group, started taking sailing lessons, and even began dating casually, something I'd always been too busy or emotionally unavailable to pursue before. Monica, my surgeon neighbor, became a close friend, our morning coffee chats, a highlight of my weekday routine. "You seem different than when you first moved in," she observed one morning as we watched the sunrise from my balcony. "More settled in yourself." "I feel different," I admitted. "Like I've finally stopped trying to earn approval I'm never going to get." "Family stuff?" she asked perceptively. "Family stuff," I confirmed, with a rueful smile. The holidays approached, bringing their inevitable emotional complications. Thanksgiving had always been spent at my parents' house, with extended family gathering around their dining table. This year, Cassandra and I made alternative plans, booking a table at an upscale restaurant overlooking the harbor. A week before Thanksgiving, my phone rang with my mother's number. After 2 months of silence following their visit, the timing wasn't coincidental. "Hello, Mom," I answered, keeping my tone neutral. "Griffin." Her voice sounded different, subdued, perhaps even humbled. "How are you?" "I'm well. The company's doing great. How are you and Dad?" A pause. "We've had to make some changes. We're selling the house." Though I'd suggested this solution months ago, hearing they were actually doing it surprised me. "I'm sorry to hear that. Have you found a new place?" "A condo near the park. It's smaller, but it will be manageable on your father's retirement income and my part-time work." Another pause. "We should have downsized years ago, instead of relying on your help. That wasn't fair to you." The acknowledgement, though belated, was unprecedented. My mother had never admitted being wrong about anything related to our family dynamics. "Thank you for saying that," I replied carefully. "Griffin, your father and I have done a lot of thinking these past months. And talking. Mostly talking." She took a deep breath. "We were wrong about how we treated you. Not just the room situation, but many things over many years." I remained silent, processing her words. "We'd like to see you," she continued. "Not at our house. It's chaos with the packing. But maybe, at your place. If you're willing, your father has some things he wants to say to you in person. Caution warred with hope in my heart. When were you thinking? This weekend, we could bring lunch. I considered the offer. Having them in my space, on my terms, felt different than meeting on their territory. Saturday at noon would work. Thank you, Griffin. The relief in her voice seemed genuine. We'll be there. Saturday arrived with clear skies and uncharacteristic nervousness on my part. I spent the morning cleaning an already immaculate apartment, arranging and rearranging the dining area, questioning my decision to allow this meeting. At precisely noon, the doorbell rang. My parents stood there, my father holding a large paper bag from an upscale deli, my mother clutching a small gift bag. Both looked older somehow, the past months having left their mark. Come in, I invited, stepping aside. They entered with the same caution as their previous visit, but something was different. My father made eye contact rather than surveying my possessions. My mother didn't immediately comment on the apartment's luxury. Thank you for seeing us, my father said, placing the food on the kitchen counter. The words, though simple, represented a shift, gratitude rather than entitlement. We settled at the dining table with sandwiches and salads. Initial conversation remained safe. The house sale, Cassandra's art success, general news about extended family. As we finished eating, my mother placed the small gift bag beside my plate. It's not much, she said. Just something we thought you should have. Inside, I found a small wooden box I recognized from my childhood. Opening it revealed the watch that had belonged to my grandfather, a simple timepiece with a worn leather band that I'd always admired. Dad always said this would go to Cassandra someday, I noted, confused by the gesture. My father cleared his throat. I was wrong about that. It should go to you. My father would have wanted his watch to go to the grandson who shares his work ethic and integrity. The compliment, so unexpected, momentarily robbed me of words. Griffin, my father continued, visibly uncomfortable, but pressing on, I owe you an apology. A real one, not the half-hearted excuse we offered before. My mother reached for his hand, encouraging him. The truth is, he said, I've never understood you. Your interest in computers, your business approach, your independence, none of it made sense to me. It was easier to focus on Cassandra, whose artistic talents I could at least pretend to understand. What your father is trying to say, my mother interjected, is that we failed you as parents in many ways. We took advantage of your success and generosity. We took you for granted. And when you finally stood up for yourself, we blamed you instead of looking at our own behavior. Selling the house has been a wake-up call, my father admitted. We relied on you financially, instead of adapting to our own changing circumstances. That wasn't fair to you, and it wasn't good parenting. I studied their faces, searching for the familiar signs of manipulation. Instead, I found something new, genuine regret, and the humility that comes from difficult self-reflection. I appreciate you saying that, I said carefully. It means a lot to hear you acknowledge these things. We don't expect things to be fixed immediately, my mother added. We know trust has to be rebuilt, but we'd like the chance to try, on your terms, whatever those might be. I'd like that too, I said, surprising myself with the realization that it was true, but things will be different. I need boundaries and respect. We understand, my father nodded, and I want you to know I'm proud of what you've built. Your company, this home, the life you've made. I should have said that years ago. The words I'd longed to hear for decades finally spoken. I felt an unexpected lightness in my chest. Not the validation I'd once desperately sought, but the satisfaction of having that chapter closed, allowing something new to begin. Would you like to see the rest of the place, I offered, standing from the table. The tour was brief but significant. My parents asking genuine questions about my choices, admiring the view, without calculating its cost. Seeing my life through new eyes. Before they left, my mother hugged me tightly. Thanksgiving, she said. Would you consider joining us at our new condo? Cassandra already said she'd come. It will be simple, but we'd love to have you there. I'll think about it. I promise, not yet ready to commit, but no longer needing to refuse outright. The following weeks brought cautious rebuilding. Occasional phone calls, a dinner at a neutral restaurant, small steps toward a healthier relationship. Cassandra thrived in her role as family bridge builder, her joy at our reconciliation evident. Thanksgiving arrived, and I found myself standing outside my parents' new condo, a bottle of wine in one hand and homemade cranberry sauce in the other. The space was indeed smaller than our family home, but thoughtfully arranged with my mother's familiar decorative touches and several of Cassandra's artworks prominently displayed. Most surprisingly, I noticed photographs of me throughout the space. Not just childhood images, but recent ones from company events and press coverage of our Japanese partnership. My parents had been paying attention from afar even during our estrangement. Dinner was different from previous years. More conversation, less tension, genuine interest in each other's lives. My father asked detailed questions about my business expansion. My mother shared her excitement about volunteering at the local art center, where she'd found part-time work. Cassandra announced a potential showing in New York that had us all celebrating. As we finished dessert, my father raised his glass. "To family," he said. "Not perfect, but learning and growing." We clinked glasses, the simple toast, acknowledging both our painful past and possible future. Later that evening, back in my coastal apartment, I stood on the balcony watching moonlight shimmer across the water. The journey from basement exile to this moment had been painful but necessary, forcing not just my parents but myself to confront uncomfortable truths and establish healthier patterns. The basement incident, while hurtful, had ultimately freed me from the cycle of seeking approval I'd never receive. In losing my childhood bedroom, I'd found something more valuable: self-worth independent of others' validation and the courage to demand respect. Family relationships would always be complicated, but for the first time ours seemed based on mutual respect rather than expectation and obligation. We were connecting as adults with separate lives rather than falling into old patterns of parenthood and childhood. The coastal apartment that had once represented escape now symbolized something else. Not rejection of family, but the healthy independence that made genuine connection possible. I had created a home that was truly mine, where family was welcome, but on terms that honored my worth. As waves crashed rhythmically against the shore below, I realized the most important lesson of this journey: sometimes you have to leave to find your way home, not to a physical space, but to your authentic self. Have you ever had to set boundaries with family members to protect your self-worth? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments. And if this journey of finding independence resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life experiences. Sometimes the hardest part of growing up isn't leaving home, but realizing your value doesn't depend on others recognizing it. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and remember, you deserve respect no matter what.